The city was quiet at night. Street lights glowed faintly, and only a few cars moved along the empty roads. Most people were asleep, but for Tom, the night was his working time. He was a taxi driver, and midnight hours were often the strangest part of his job. People came and went, some in a hurry, some tired after long days, and some carrying secrets they never wanted to share. On this night, Tom waited near the central station. His taxi was old but reliable. He had cleaned it earlier that day, making sure the seats were neat and the windows clear. He leaned back in his seat, listening to the hum of the city. The air was calm, almost too calm. For a moment, Tom thought it would be another slow night with only a few passengers. Then it happened. A figure rushed out of the shadows and moved quickly toward his cab. Tom sat up straight, his eyes narrowing as he noticed how unusual the figure looked. It was a woman, but not like anyone he had ever seen. She was tall, with long dark hair that shimmered faintly in the streetlight. Her eyes glowed a soft blue, almost like stars. She opened the door and sat in the back seat without a word. "Drive, please," she said, her voice low but urgent. Tom hesitated for a moment. He had carried many strange passengers before, but there was something different about her. She did not look like someone simply trying to get home. There was fear in her voice, and she kept glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to follow. "Where to?" Tom asked carefully, his hand resting on the steering wheel. "Just away from here," she replied quickly. "As far as you can." Tom gave a small nod and started the engine. The taxi rolled forward, leaving the station behind. The tires hummed on the road as the city lights blurred past. Tom glanced in the mirror, studying the passenger. Her clothes were unusual, made of fabric that shimmered slightly, as if it was woven from threads of light. She held the edges of her cloak tightly around herself, trying to stay hidden. Tom wanted to ask questions, but years of driving had taught him that sometimes silence was safer. Still, his curiosity grew stronger with every passing minute. Finally, he cleared his throat. "You look like you're running from something," he said. The woman's glowing eyes met his in the mirror for a moment before she looked away. "You could say that," she whispered. Tom frowned. He did not like the sound of her voice. It was not only fear but also sadness, as if she carried a heavy burden. They drove through the city, taking turns down quieter streets. Tom knew the main roads were too open. If someone really was chasing her, they would need to avoid the usual paths. His instinct told him this was no ordinary passenger. After a while, he tried again. "You know, it's safer if I know where we're going. I can't just drive in circles all night." She hesitated, then leaned forward slightly. "Do you believe in life beyond your world?" Tom blinked at the strange question. "You mean aliens?" he asked, almost with a laugh. "Yes," she answered seriously. The weight in her voice made Tom's smile fade. He looked at her in the mirror again. Her eyes glowed brighter for a brief second, like a hidden truth slipping out. Suddenly, he realized what she was trying to say. "You're not," he stopped himself. "I am not from here," she said quietly, finishing his thought. Tom gripped the wheel tighter. For a moment, he thought she must be joking, but deep down, something told him she was speaking the truth. Her clothes, her eyes, the way she moved, it all felt otherworldly. "My name is Nira," she said softly. "I do not have much time. Please, keep driving." Tom's heart raced, but he did as she asked. The streets stretched on, empty and quiet. A part of him wanted to turn the car around and leave her at the station. Another part of him wanted to believe her story. He had always thought life in the universe was too vast for humans to be alone. And now, sitting in his taxi, was proof that he had been right. Nira sat in silence for a while, watching the passing streets. She kept her hands hidden under the cloak, her posture tense. Tom noticed how she flinched whenever a bright light flashed outside. It was clear someone was chasing her. Finally, Tom asked, "Why me? Why did you choose my cab?" Nira gave a faint smile, though it was full of sadness. "Because you stopped. Because you looked like someone who would not ask too many questions." Tom shook his head with a small laugh. "Well, I'm already asking questions." "Yes," she said softly, "but you are still driving." The words hung in the air, and Tom realized she was right. He could have refused her, but he didn't. Something about her made him want to help. He did not know who she was or what danger followed her, but he knew one thing: his ordinary night had just become something far greater than he ever expected. As the taxi moved deeper into the city, the hum of the streets grew quieter. Tom did not know where this night would lead, but he felt a strange certainty it was only the beginning. The taxi moved steadily through the sleeping city. Tom kept his eyes on the road, but his thoughts kept drifting to the strange woman in the back seat. She had given him her name Nira, but that was all. Her glowing eyes and unusual clothes made her seem unreal, like a dream that had somehow stepped into his cab. Tom had driven many people in his life: businessmen, tired students, lost travelers, even people running from trouble, but Nira was different. She carried silence with her, a silence heavy with secrets. Every time he glanced into the mirror, he caught her watching the skies instead of the streets, as though she expected danger to fall from above at any moment. Finally, Tom broke the silence. "So, Nira," he said carefully, "where exactly do you want me to take you?" Her hands tightened around her cloak. "Away," she whispered. "That's not much of a direction," Tom replied with a small smile, trying to lighten the mood. Nira leaned forward slightly, her glowing eyes catching the dim light inside the taxi. "If I told you the truth, you would not believe me." Tom raised his eyebrows. "Try me." For a long moment, Nira hesitated. She looked out the window at the quiet buildings sliding past, then back at Tom. Finally, she spoke. "I come from far beyond this world. My people live among the stars, in great ships and shining cities. But not all lives there are free. I was promised as a bride to a powerful leader. It was not my choice. Tonight, I escaped." Tom gripped the steering wheel tighter. He had half expected her to say something unusual, but hearing it out loud still sent a shiver down his spine. He glanced at her in the mirror, searching her face for any sign of a lie. But her eyes held only fear and determination. "You're serious?" Tom said slowly. "Yes," Nira answered. "And now they are searching for me. They will not stop until they find me." Tom let out a low breath. He wanted to laugh, to say it all sounded impossible, but deep inside he knew it wasn't. The universe was too big, and humans knew too little. Her clothes, her eyes, the way she carried herself, none of it felt like a trick. "Why Earth?" Tom asked after a moment. "Because your people are ignored," she said simply. "To most of the galaxy, humans are considered too simple, too weak. No one would expect me to come here." She gave a faint smile. "That is why this is the safest place for me, at least for now." Tom frowned. He had never thought of humans as weak, but he supposed to beings who traveled the stars, humanity must look small. Yet there was something in her voice, almost a hint of respect, as if she had already begun to see Earth differently. Nero leaned back against the seat, pulling the cloak tighter. Her glowing eyes dimmed slightly as though she was exhausted. "I should not be here," she murmured. "But I could not accept a life that was chosen for me. I want freedom. I want to choose my own path, even if it is dangerous." Her words struck Tom deeply. He had lived his whole life in one city, driving the same streets day after day. His world was small, but he understood the value of freedom. People might call him ordinary, but at least his choices were his own. He looked at her again through the mirror, feeling a strange mix of pity and admiration. "Sounds like you're braver than most people I've met," he said quietly. Nira gave him a tired smile. "Or more desperate." For a while, they rode in silence again. The hum of the engine filled the cab. Tom turned down side roads, choosing the darker streets where few people wandered. His instincts told him it was safer to stay hidden. At one corner, a shadow passed overhead. Tom's heart skipped. He glanced up and saw faint lights moving across the sky, too smooth and silent to be airplanes. Nira stiffened in the back seat, her glowing eyes widening. "They are close," she whispered. Tom pressed the accelerator, guiding the taxi deeper into the city's narrow lanes. He knew these roads better than anyone. If her pursuers were truly searching, maybe his knowledge of the city would help them hide. "You don't have to stay with me," Nira said suddenly. "You could stop now and let me go. This is not your fight." Tom shook his head. "You got in my cab. That makes you my passenger. And I don't leave my passengers in danger." Nira stared at him, surprised by his answer. Slowly, her expression softened. "You are different," she said. "Most people would have turned me away." Tom gave a short laugh. "Maybe I'm just too stubborn." Her faint smile returned, but there was gratitude in her eyes. In that moment, a small bond formed between them, two very different lives crossing paths in the middle of the night. One was an alien bride escaping a fate she did not choose, and the other was an ordinary man with an old taxi. Yet somehow, together, they had a chance. As the taxi rolled through the dark streets, Tom felt the night shift around him. He had started this shift expecting nothing but long hours and empty roads. Instead, he had become part of a secret that stretched beyond Earth itself. Whatever was coming, he knew his life would never be the same again. The city was quiet, but the silence felt heavy, as if the night itself was holding its breath. Tom drove quickly through the empty streets, his eyes flicking between the road ahead and the mirror above him. In the back seat, Nira sat stiff and alert, her glowing eyes fixed on the dark sky beyond the window. Then it came, the faint hum. At first, it was so soft that Tom thought it was just the sound of his engine, but the noise grew deeper, vibrating through the air. Nira's head lifted sharply. "They are here," she whispered. Tom looked up through the windshield. Above the rooftops, a light glided silently across the night sky. It was not like an airplane or helicopter. This was smooth, controlled, and strangely quiet. The light stretched like a blade of silver against the darkness, sweeping the streets below. Tom's heart raced. "That's them, isn't it?" Nira nodded. "The hunters." The word sent a chill through Tom's chest. He pressed harder on the accelerator, guiding the taxi into narrow streets where the silver light could not easily reach. He had driven these roads for years. He knew which alleys cut through to the next block, which paths ended in dead ends, and which tunnels dipped under the old train lines. Now, that knowledge became their shield. The hum grew louder. Another light appeared in the distance, then another. They were not alone. The sky carried more than one of those ships, sweeping slowly, searching. Tom kept his hands steady on the wheel, though sweat began to build on his forehead. "If they're so advanced," he muttered, "how do you expect me to outrun them in an old taxi?" Nira leaned forward, her voice urgent but calm. "They are strong, yes, but they do not understand your world. They do not know these streets the way you do. That is your advantage." Tom's lips pressed into a thin line. She was right. If he panicked, they were finished. But if he trusted his instincts, maybe they stood a chance. Suddenly, a bright beam of white light swept down from above, striking the street behind them. The ground lit up like daylight for a moment. Tom cursed under his breath and swerved sharply, turning into an alley barely wide enough for his taxi. Trash bins clattered against the sides as he sped through, but they escaped the beam. In the back seat, Nira gripped the edges of her cloak tightly. Her glowing eyes flickered brighter with fear. They know I am near. They will not stop now. The taxi burst out of the alley and onto another street. Tom pushed the car faster, the engine groaning in protest. Ahead, he spotted the bridge that crossed the river. He aimed for it, hoping the water below might confuse their hunters' scanning beams. As they drove onto the bridge, another beam cut across the road in front of them. Tom slammed the brakes, tires screeching loudly. The light burned against the pavement, leaving a faint shimmer where it had touched. Nira gasped. "They are trying to trap us," she said. Tom's eyes darted left and right. On one side was the open water, on the other side a narrow path leading down to the riverside warehouses. Without a second thought, he swerved toward the path. The taxi bounced violently as it left the main road, but Tom kept it steady, steering them into the shadows of the old buildings. The hum of the ships followed above, circling like predators. Their lights sliced through the night, searching every corner. Tom killed the headlights and guided the car slowly under the cover of the warehouse roofs. The taxi rolled to a stop behind a stack of rusted containers. For a moment, everything went still. The only sound was the faint tick of the taxi's cooling engine. Tom's chest heaved as he caught his breath. He turned to Nira, who sat frozen in silence. "They'll keep searching," Tom said. "We can't stay here forever." Nira nodded. "But you bought us time. Few of your kind could have done this." Tom almost laughed, though his nerves were too tight. "Guess I've spent too many years running late-night fairs through back alleys." Above them, the hum deepened. One of the ships slowed, hovering close. The light swept across the warehouse roofs, spilling through cracks and broken windows. Tom ducked lower, his hands gripping the steering wheel even though the car was not moving. Nira reached forward and placed her hand gently on his arm. "Do not fear," she whispered. "Fear gives them power. Calm is our shield." Tom swallowed hard, forcing himself to breathe steadily. Slowly, the ship drifted past, its beam sliding away from their hiding place. The hum faded slightly as it moved on. Nira sat back, her glowing eyes dimming again. "We must keep moving soon. They will not stop until I am taken back." Tom looked at her through the mirror, his jaw tight. He had met her only hours ago, yet already he felt something stir in him, a strange duty to protect her. She was not just a passenger anymore. She was someone running for her life, and somehow, he was the only one standing between her and the hunters above. He turned the key, starting the engine again. The sound was small compared to the massive hums of the ships, but it felt like defiance. "All right, Nira," Tom said quietly, "let's see if an old taxi can really outrun the stars." The taxi rolled back into the night, slipping through the maze of streets while the silver lights hunted from above. The chase was only beginning, but Tom's resolve had grown stronger. He might have been just a driver, but tonight he was something more. The taxi rolled through the sleeping city until Tom finally guided it into an abandoned garage at the edge of an old industrial block. Rusted gates stood half open, weeds pushing through cracks in the ground. The place had been empty for years, but to Tom, it seemed like the best place to hide. He switched off the engine, and silence filled the space. Nira leaned forward, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Why here?" she asked. Tom shrugged. "Because nobody comes here. It's forgotten. And right now, being forgotten sounds like the safest thing." Nira looked around slowly. The garage smelled of dust and metal. Shadows stretched across broken walls, and old tools lay scattered in corners. To her, it was strange and rough, but there was something comforting in its emptiness. She nodded slightly. "Yes. It will do." Tom climbed out of the car and stretched his arms. His body felt tense from the chase, but his mind was sharper than ever. He walked to the side of the taxi, opening the trunk. He always kept a few things inside: an old blanket, a small box of tools, and a couple of bottles of water. He brought them inside and set them on the hood of the car. "You must be hungry," Tom said, pulling a sandwich from his bag. It wasn't much, just something he had packed earlier for the night shift. He held it out to her. Nira blinked at the offering, then slowly reached out. She studied the bread carefully before taking a bite. Her glowing eyes softened as she chewed. "It is simple," she said, "but kind." Tom smiled faintly. "That's all I've got, simple things." For a moment, they sat in quiet. The faint hum of the alien ships could still be heard far above, though distant now. Nira pulled the cloak tighter around her shoulders, as if trying to disappear within it. Tom leaned against the hood of the car, arms crossed. "So," he said carefully, "you really were going to be married off to one of them?" Nira's expression darkened. "Yes. It was arranged before I was even born. My people believe in binding families together through such unions. But to me, it felt like chains. The man chosen for me is powerful, but cruel. He sees me only as a prize, not as a person. I could not stay." Her voice shook slightly, but she kept her head high. Tom studied her quietly. He had never thought much about the lives of people beyond Earth, but hearing her speak, he realized they struggled with many of the same things humans did: power, control, and the fight for freedom. "I get it," Tom said. "Nobody wants to live a life chosen by someone else." Nira's eyes met his. "And yet, many accept it?" "Yeah," Tom replied, "but not you. That makes you different." A silence fell between them. It wasn't uncomfortable, but heavy with thought. Nira looked down at the sandwich in her hands, as if it symbolized something more than food. A small act of kindness, given freely, meant more to her than all the riches her people had tried to offer in exchange for obedience. "You are not like them," she said softly. Tom raised an eyebrow. "Them?" "The others I've met beyond your world. They see humans as weak, as little more than children. But you are stubborn. You risked yourself when you did not have to." "Why?" Tom thought for a moment, then gave a small laugh. "I don't really know. Maybe it's because you got in my cab, and once someone's in my cab, I don't leave them behind. Or maybe it's because I can't stand the thought of someone being trapped with no way out." Nira studied him quietly, her glowing eyes searching his face. For the first time since entering his taxi, her shoulders relaxed a little. "You are unusual for your kind." "Unusual?" Tom repeated, half smiling. "I'll take that as a compliment." They shared a quiet laugh. It was small, but it broke through the tension hanging in the air. After a while, Tom spread the blanket on the cold floor. "You should rest," he said. "We'll move again once the city wakes up. Easier to blend in with traffic during the day." Nira hesitated. Rest was a luxury she had not known in a long time. Finally, she lowered herself onto the blanket, curling the cloak around her. The hard floor was nothing like the silken chambers she had grown up in, but it felt safer because it was her choice. She closed her eyes slowly. Tom sat nearby, leaning against the taxi. His mind raced with questions about her people, about the hunters, about what would happen next. But he knew this wasn't the time to ask. She needed rest, and he needed to stay alert. The garage was silent except for the faint sound of Nira's breathing. Tom kept his eyes on the shadows near the broken windows, listening for any hint of movement outside. He had faced many long nights behind the wheel of his cab, but this one felt different. It wasn't just about earning money anymore. It was about protecting someone who had trusted him, even if by chance. As he sat there, Tom realized something unexpected. He wasn't afraid anymore, not like before. The danger was still there, but the fear had been replaced by determination. Nero was no longer just a strange passenger. She was someone who needed him, and somehow, that gave him strength. Above the city, the alien hunters continued their search, their silver lights sweeping the night sky. But in the forgotten garage, an unlikely bond was forming between a runaway alien bride and an ordinary taxi driver. And though they did not know it yet, that bond would become the very thing that changed everything. The sun had just begun to rise when Tom decided it was time to leave the garage. Faint orange light spilled through the cracked windows, and the city beyond was slowly waking up. Morning traffic would soon fill the streets, and Tom knew blending into the flow of cars would be safer than hiding in silence. He tapped the roof of the taxi gently. "Time to move," he said. Neera stirred from her light rest, her glowing eyes dim at first, then brighter as she sat up. She pulled the cloak tighter around her shoulders. "They will not stop," she murmured. "Even daylight will not keep them away." Tom gave a short nod. "Then we'll just have to stay one step ahead." The taxi rumbled to life once more, rolling out of the abandoned garage and onto the road. At first, the city looked almost normal: workers heading to jobs, buses carrying students, shops opening their shutters. To any observer, Tom's old cab looked like just another vehicle in the morning rush. But Neera's tense posture and Tom's sharp eyes on the mirrors told a different story. It didn't take long before the sky answered their fears. A shadow swept over the road, blotting out the morning light. Tom glanced upward and saw it: a ship, sleek and silver, gliding silently above the city. Neera's breath caught. "It is him," she whispered. Tom frowned. "Him? The one I was meant to marry," Neera said, her voice low but heavy. "He has come himself." As if to prove her words, the ship tilted, and a bright blue beam shot downward, sweeping across the street. Cars screeched to a halt, horns blaring, as drivers panicked at the strange light. People fled the sidewalks, shouting in confusion. To them, it must have looked like a sudden storm of fire from the sky. Tom tightened his grip on the wheel. "They're not even hiding anymore," he muttered. The beam passed close, brushing against the taxi. For a second, the engine stuttered, lights flickering. Neera gasped, clutching the seat. "They are trying to disable us." "Not today," Tom growled. He jerked the wheel, turning sharply into a side street, leaving chaos behind. The ship followed. Its shadow crawled along the buildings as it kept pace. Neera's glowing eyes were wide with fear. "You cannot fight them." "Their strength," Tom cut her off. "Maybe I can't fight, but I can outsmart." He sped through the narrow streets, weaving between delivery trucks and weaving past startled cyclists. The ship above was too large to follow directly, its beam struggling to angle into the small alleys. But it wasn't giving up. A deep voice echoed through the air, amplified from the ship itself. "Neera," the voice thundered. "Return now, and no harm will come to this world. Stay, and you will bring destruction upon these people." Neera pressed her hands over her ears, trembling. The voice was cold, commanding, and filled with pride. Tom glanced at her through the mirror. "That's him, isn't it?" She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes. He does not care for peace. He only wants control. If I go back, his power will grow." Tom grit his teeth. The choice was clear: there was no way he would hand her over. He turned sharply into another street, one he knew well. It was older, lined with tall buildings that blocked the sky. The ship above struggled to keep its beam steady in such a tight area. "Hold on," Tom said, his voice steady now. He switched off his taxi's main lights and darted into an underground tunnel that ran beneath the railway tracks. The ship's beam swept past the entrance, missing them entirely. Inside the tunnel, darkness wrapped around them, broken only by the glow of Neera's eyes. "Clever," she whispered. Just city tricks, Tom said with a faint smile, though his heart still pounded. You learn where to hide when you've been driving these roads as long as I have. They reached the other side of the tunnel, where sunlight spilled again. Tom merged back into traffic, slipping among the cars. From above, the hunter's ship circled, confused by the sudden disappearance. But the victory was short. Two smaller crafts appeared, splitting off from the main ship. They were faster, darting like hawks. Their beams cut through the streets, searching every corner. Nira's face paled. They will not stop until they see me. They will search every shadow. Tom exhaled slowly. He had no weapons, no army, just his knowledge of the city and his old cab. But in that moment, he realized something important. They underestimated him. To them, he was just a human driver, someone unworthy of notice. And that was exactly his strength. Then we'll make them look the wrong way, Tom said firmly. He took a sharp turn toward the city's electrical district. Tall towers loomed ahead, filled with wires and humming transformers. The air shimmered faintly with static. The alien crafts followed, but as their beams struck the area, the interference caused them to flicker. Sparks danced on the wires, and the lights of the ships faltered. Tom smirked. Technology doesn't like this place. He guided the taxi beneath the power lines, weaving between the towers. The alien craft circled above, beams sputtering, unable to hold steady in the static. For the first time, Tom saw hesitation in their movements. Nero looked at him with wonder. You are using the city itself to fight them. Not fighting, Tom corrected, his eyes sharp. Surviving. At last, the ships pulled back, their beams fading. The larger vessel hovered far above, but it did not descend again. For now, the chase had slowed. Tom guided the taxi out of the district, his hands still tight on the wheel. His heart was racing, but his face stayed calm. Nero leaned forward, her voice soft. You stood against them when no one else would. You risked yourself for me. Tom shook his head. I'm just a driver. I don't like bullies, that's all. But Nira knew better. In her world, strength was measured by power and fear. Yet here was a human who fought with neither only courage and cleverness. And in that moment, she realized something her people had never understood: humans were not weak. They were strong in ways no one had expected. The chase had slowed, but Tom knew it was far from over. The hunters would regroup, stronger than before. He could not keep driving forever. His taxi was tough, but it was not built to outrun ships from the stars. He needed another way, something beyond roads and alleys. Nero leaned forward, her glowing eyes steady now. There is one place, she said quietly. Long ago, my people left a hidden gate on this world. It was meant as a link, a path to the stars. Few know it still exists. If we reach it, I can be free. Tom glanced at her in the mirror. Where is it? At the old observatory, far outside the city. It was built over the gate without knowing. Humans thought it was just for watching the skies, but it sits upon something much older. Tom nodded. The observatory was an hour's drive at best, maybe less if he pushed the taxi hard. Then that's where we're going. He turned the car onto the highway, speeding past trucks and early morning travelers. The city slowly gave way to open roads, where fields stretched under the rising sun. For a moment, it almost looked peaceful. But peace never lasted long. A sudden hum shook the air. In the mirror, Tom saw the silver ship again, this time lower, faster. Smaller crafts darted alongside it like hunting dogs. They've found us, Tom muttered. Nira's hands tightened on the seat. They will not let us reach the gate. Tom pressed harder on the accelerator. The taxi's old engine roared in protest, but it gave him every bit of speed it had left. The road ahead wound upward toward the hills where the observatory stood. The hunters descended. Blue beams struck the highway behind them, shattering the road and sending chunks of asphalt flying. Cars swerved off the sides, people screaming in terror. Tom gritted his teeth. He could not think about them now. He had one task: get nearer to the gate. Hold on, he said, turning sharply onto a side road. Dust rose behind them as they left the main highway. The narrow road twisted between hills, giving them cover for a moment. The ships followed above, their beams slicing through trees and earth. The ground shook, but Tom kept driving, guiding the taxi like it was part of him. Every sharp turn, every dip in the road, he used to escape the hunter's sight. At last, the observatory came into view. It stood tall on a hill, its great dome gleaming in the sunlight. Around it were crumbling stone walls, remains of an older time. There, Nira said, pointing. Beneath it lies the gate. The ships closed in. One beam struck the ground just ahead, blocking the road with burning rubble. Tom slammed the brakes, tires screeching. Dust and smoke filled the air. They're cutting us off, Nira said, her voice tight with fear. Tom's eyes narrowed. Not if I can help it. He spun the wheel, guiding the taxi off the road and into the rough hillside. Rocks clattered beneath the tires as the car bumped wildly, but Tom held on, driving straight up toward the observatory. The hunters roared above, beams striking dangerously close. One blast tore open the ground beside them, sending dirt spraying across the windshield. Another grazed the back of the taxi, shaking it violently. Nira grabbed the seat, her eyes glowing bright. Tom, the car cannot take more. Neither can I, he muttered, but we don't have a choice. With a final push, the taxi reached the top of the hill. Smoke rose from its hood, but it kept rolling forward until it stopped in front of the observatory. Tom jumped out, rushing to Nira's side. Come on, he shouted. Together, they ran toward the great dome. The heavy doors creaked as Tom shoved them open. Inside, the observatory was silent, filled with dust and broken machines. Nira moved quickly, her glowing eyes guiding her to the center of the floor. She placed her hand on the stone tiles. A faint shimmer appeared, spreading like ripples in water. Slowly, a circular pattern lit up, glowing with the same blue light that shone in her eyes. The gate, she whispered. The hum outside grew louder. The hunters' ships had landed nearby. Heavy steps echoed as figures approached, their voices sharp and commanding. Nira, the same deep voice called, shaking the air. You cannot run. Return now. Nira's face hardened. She looked at Tom. They will come inside. I cannot open the gate quickly enough alone. It takes two. Tom's eyes widened. Two. Yes, she said. One to carry the mark of my people, and one to offer their own will freely. Tom stepped forward without hesitation. Tell me what to do. She looked into his eyes, searching for doubt, but found none. She guided his hand to the glowing circle. The stone burned with energy, but Tom held steady. The floor shook, and the circle widened, glowing brighter until it formed a swirling portal. The doors of the observatory burst open. Alien figures entered, tall, armored, their leader standing at the front. His eyes burned with pride and fury as he pointed at Nira. You belong to me, he declared. Nira stood tall, her voice firm. No, I belong to no one. The portal roared with light. Tom grabbed her hand. Time to go. Together, they ran into the gate. Behind them, the hunters charged forward, but the portal swallowed Tom and Nira in a flash of blue. The observatory shook, and then silence. They were gone. Tom and Nira stumbled forward, their hands still tightly clasped, as the blue light of the portal faded behind them. For a moment, everything was dizzying. Colors swirled, and the air felt alive with energy. Tom blinked rapidly, his heart racing. "Where are we?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Nero let go of his hand for a second, looking around in awe. They were standing on a platform of smooth crystal that stretched endlessly in every direction. Above them, stars shone brighter than any night sky on Earth. Strange lights danced between them, moving like living ribbons. The air smelled faintly of metal and flowers, a combination that made Tom feel both dizzy and calm at the same time. "This is one of the hidden realms," Nero said softly. "Few humans have ever reached it. It exists between worlds, beyond the reach of those who hunt me. Here, I am safe." Tom looked at her, still trying to process everything. He had spent his life in a small city, driving the same streets every day, and now he was standing in a place that seemed like a dream. "It's incredible," he said. "I can't believe this is real." Neera's glowing eyes softened. "It is real. And because you helped me, you are part of it now." Tom swallowed, his chest tight. "Me? I'm just a taxi driver. I don't belong here." Neera shook her head. "You do. Your courage, your choices, that matters more than power or birth. You saved me when no one else would. That is the mark of strength, and strength is respected here." Tom looked around again, noticing the floating platforms and streams of light that connected them. He felt a strange warmth in his chest, a mixture of relief, awe, and pride. Somehow, he had survived impossible dangers and now stood among the stars with someone extraordinary. Neera extended her hand. "Come with me. There is much to show you. This realm is a place where your world and mine can meet, safely and freely. You will see what humans could become if we work together." Tom took a deep breath and followed her. They walked along the crystal platform, and he noticed creatures moving nearby, beings with soft, glowing bodies, wings that shimmered like liquid light, and eyes filled with intelligence. Some watched them with curiosity, others with gentle smiles. Everything here seemed alive in a way Tom had never imagined. How is this possible?" Tom asked. "All this, and humans don't know about it. They do not see it because they are not ready," Neera said. "But you are ready because you believe in more than what you see. You acted with courage, even when you did not fully understand. That is why you are here." Tom looked at her, amazed. "And me helping you, it changed everything." Neera nodded. "Yes. My people see the universe differently now because of humans like you. We respect your kind more than before. Your world may be small, but it is brave. And one day, humans will reach the stars in ways even I cannot imagine." Tom smiled, a small, quiet smile, but it felt full of hope. "Then, maybe I am more than just a driver after all." Neera reached out and touched his shoulder lightly. "You are a friend, a protector, and a partner. That is far greater than any title you could earn on Earth." They walked further along the platform. The lights around them began to shift and form shapes, showing visions of distant worlds, glowing cities, and oceans of liquid light. Tom felt a sense of wonder that made him forget the dangers of the past nights. All the fear, the hunts, the escape, it had led him here. Neera paused and looked at him, her voice calm and serious. "Tom, one day you will return to Earth. But remember this, courage is what shapes the future. Humanity has much potential, and the choices of one person can change everything." Tom nodded slowly. "I'll remember. I want to help, even from Earth." Neera smiled, her glow brightening. "And that is why you belong here. We are bound now, not by duty or fear, but by trust. Together, we can make a difference." They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars shimmer above them. For the first time, Tom felt the weight of his ordinary life lift. He realized that ordinary people could do extraordinary things. All it took was courage, kindness, and the will to act when it mattered most. Finally, Nira turned to him. It is time to rest. You have earned it. When you wake, there will be much to see, much to learn, and much to plan. But for now, you are safe. Tom nodded. He had never imagined safety could feel so vast. For the first time in his life, he felt free in every sense of the word. As he sat on the smooth crystal platform beside Nira, watching the lights dance across the sky, he realized that the galaxy was no longer something distant and unreachable. It was a place where humans could matter, where choices and courage could shape destinies. And beside him, Nira's glowing eyes reflected the same hope he felt. Together, they had survived the impossible, escaped the hunters, and opened a new path for the future. The stars above shimmered like promises. And for the first time, Tom understood that life beyond the streets of his city could be extraordinary. He smiled and said softly, "Then let's see what comes next." Nira returned the smile, brighter than ever. Together,